Yes. First of all, now he's not saying his name, so now that gives him freedom to make up more details about this.
Yeah, we've lost some talk.
Hi and welcome to Flossom Talk. I'm Tasty Floor, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. I promised you guys on Friday that this is going to be a juicy episode, and it's going to be even juicier than I thought because so many things have happened since Friday. There were 8 different new filings on Friday, and yesterday on a Saturday, there was another 9 filings. These lawyers are arguing like the Real Housewives of New Jersey in the docket. It's quite entertaining, but it's also really important what's happening right now because now the tension is higher than ever because on Tuesday, it's the last official day of discovery. So they have so much they need to do before Tuesday, and that's why they keep arguing about all this stuff. That means that the stakes are obviously really high right now. So one of the filings is a motion to judgment, which is basically Baldoni asking the judge to toss Blake Lively's case because she has no legal groundings in what she's suing him for. The other filing is about a Sony ex-executive and who gets to speak to him first. He's a really important witness, and I'll get into that as well. But first, I wanted to announce that now you can become a member of Flossom Talk. You can press on the join button below where you also press subscribe. And when you join Flossom Talk, you get a lot of benefits. You get exclusive emoji, loyalty badges, you get priority replies to your comments, you get access to members-only polls, which helps shape my future episodes. You get shout outs in my videos and you get discount on my merch. So this is a way to say thank you and to support my channel if you're interested in that. Anyways, I promised this episode was going to be juicy, and I said on Friday I went down the rabbit hole after I watched a new interview with Ryan Reynolds. So thank you, Darla and Matteo as well for sending me this video that I watched, and I was like, oh, another podcast with Ryan Reynolds where he's promoting John Candy, the movie. And then towards the end of this interview, he told this story that I was like, oh, I've heard this story before. The story was when he offended another actor and he felt so guilty about it. And then he wanted to apologize. And then he did something even more stupid that backfired on him. He's told this story many times. And every time he tells this story, it changes. So here he is in 2004. This is the episode that he's referring to in these interviews.
Is this your head pasted onto somebody else's body? Because
what people don't know is that when I exhale, I actually turn into Tom Arnold.
Right.
Yeah, so he made a joke saying that he has a great body, but when he exhales, he turns into Tom Arnold, the actor. Not a very nice thing for Tom Arnold to hear, obviously. So 4 years later, in 2008, Ryan Reynolds went back on Conan O'Brien, and this happened.
I don't know why it popped into my head, but I said, oh yeah, there I am with my shirt off. When I exhale, I turn into Tom Arnold.
Right.
Haha, whatever. I leave the show.
Right.
Fly all the way back to Los Angeles, walk into my apartment building, right through the lobby, and who's standing there but Tom Arnold?
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and he just lost 50 pounds. And then so I went up and I'm feeling just like friggin' awful.
Right.
And I go up to my apartment and I order up a really nice bottle of champagne and send it to him. And then the next day I see him in the lobby again and he says, you know, Ryan, you must be the only guy in the United States that doesn't know I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Okay, so Ryan Reynolds said that he felt terrible for fat shaming him and that he sent him a bottle of champagne. He also said that he lost about 50 pounds. I don't know if that's true. Probably not. But anyways, he said that he met him in the lobby of his apartment building. And so obviously, Tom Arnold must live in his building if he's in the lobby. And if he's in the lobby twice, so he met him there, apologized, then he went up to his apartment, sent him 1 bottle of champagne, and then he met him again in the lobby, and Tom Arnold told him that I'm a recovering alcoholic. So earlier this year, Ryan Reynolds went on Conan O'Brien's podcast. And guess what? He told the same story again. But now it's changed.
I wrote a long note to the person afterwards, and I said, I don't know why that came out of my mouth. And it was because I'd seen them like a couple days before near the apartment I was renting in Santa Monica. This is so long ago. And I wrote a long letter to him, sent him a case of champagne. Later, I read a story about his wife saying that he fell off the wagon back in June. And I had no idea. So that's where I got the lesson to never apologize.
Yes. First of all, now he's not saying his name. So now that gives him freedom to make up more details about this, obviously, because that's what he did. Now, it was not a bottle of champagne that he sent to Tom Arnold. It was a case. And he did not meet him in the lobby the next day anymore. And the fact that he's saying that he met him and he's seen him around the area where he lives. I guess they're not living in the same building anymore either. And now it's not Tom Arnold personally telling him that you must be the only person in the world who doesn't know that I'm a recovering alcoholic. Now he read in an article that Arnold's wife said that he was a recovering alcoholic, that he stopped drinking. That is a very different story from what he told in 2008. And then you can think, okay, maybe you forget some details because there's been some years in between. But then, just 2 weeks ago, the story changed again.
Once on a talk show, I said something about another actor, and I didn't mean to. It was like I'm making a joke or something, and I realized later it was kind of like, probably didn't feel good. And of course I ran into that person, and I apologized profusely. But I remember that as an apology, I didn't know what to do. I sent him a case of champagne. I didn't know how to buy it. And I sent him a case of champagne. He took it, and his wife called me and said, hey, he's a recovering alcoholic.
Yes, so this interview and the one I just showed with Conan O'Brien, they were only 4 months apart, 3 or 4 months apart. And the story has changed. Now, it was still a case of champagne though, but now Arnold's wife called Ryan and said that he's a recovering alcoholic. He also added that he sent him a long letter. Yeah, so what happened to this letter? So why didn't he tell Conan O'Brien in these 2 other incidents that he sent him a long letter? And when he's retelling this story, there's nothing about how Arnold had lost a lot of weight when he saw him again. And I find it really interesting that they've been living in the same building and he met him in the lobby twice in such a short period of time as he claimed back in 2008. And he made this joke knowing that he would obviously then run into him again if he knew he was in the building. None of these stories make any sense to me. And my point here is that when you are able to tell and twist a story around so many times, and I'm sure he told these stories in other settings as well, how can anyone trust anything you say? So imagine Ryan testifying for Blake Lively in court, if it ever comes to that he will testify for her. I don't know if he's going to do that or not, but how can anyone believe anything he says? When this story changes so much throughout the years, and it even changed so much just in 4 months, I just find it so curious. The fact that Blake Lively has been accused of cherry picking facts and evidence, these text messages she cherry picked, and then she twisted the truth around, which is exactly what Ryan Reynolds is doing here. This is like so clear evidence of how they are working and how they're changing up the facts and changing the narrative, changing the story. Yeah, this is like their business model. You take a shaky story, you polish it, you repackage it, and you sell it as the truth. Even though this was just a funny, charming story on a talk show, now that he's in the middle of this legal mess, things like this would take away his credibility, and it should. And there's another story here on how Ryan Reynolds insulted his wife. This looks so terrible. Anyways, but before I get into that, I wanted to thank the sponsor of this video, Nutrafol. I've been taking Nutrafol for over 6 months now, and I have to say that I really feel and see a difference in my hair. It feels much fuller and stronger, and it actually sheds a lot less. When you feel like you're having a good hair day? I feel those days are more frequent now. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand. It's trusted by over 1.5 million people. And you can feel good about what you put into your body because Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF Contents certified. What I really like is that it's so easy to stay consistent. You just take 4 pills daily with a meal and that's it. And with Nutrafol subscriptions, deliveries are automatic, so I never run out. Plus, you get access to one-on-one naturopathic doctor consults to support you along the way. And you even get a Headspace meditation membership. I really love that app, actually. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering my listeners and my viewers $10 off your first month of subscription and free shipping when you click on the link in my description and enter the promo code Kjersti, my name. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand by ordering today. Be sure to use my code to support my channel. Again, click on the link in my description and use code Kjersti, my name. Okay, so let's get back to Ryan being rude to his own wife. So the story here is that Ryan tried to get Bill Murray to contribute to the documentary about John Candy, and he tried to get hold of him so many times. This story's been everywhere in the news for the last couple of weeks, and he couldn't get hold of him because it's impossible to get hold of Bill Murray. And then finally, he calls him back. And when he calls him back, he is in a car with Blake and they're about to go into a fancy event, a tuxedo event, he says. I don't know what event this was. This must have been a year ago or more because I'm sure it took a while to make this documentary. So I don't know what event it was. But they were nice. He said that he was wearing a tuxedo and whatever. And Bill Murray calls and Blake says, we have to go in because they were expecting them. And then he turned around to Blake, according to himself, and he said, F you. He told this story, and apparently the audience bursted out in laughter. They thought it was so funny that he was insulting his wife. Why would he tell this story? He knows things like this will get picked up. I think that just says a lot about him and the respect or disrespect he has for Blake. If that's the way they talk to each other at home in private, I think they need some counseling. Anyways, back to these filings, because there were a couple of filings that they were arguing in the docket. One of the things was the arguing back and forth about who should depose this executive from Sony first. But the other filing was maybe even more interesting. So Baldoni's team dropped this motion for judgment. Motion for judgment is basically a motion to dismiss just a little bit later in the game, and it's something that you do before a summary judgment. All these legal terms for me are like, oh my God, so I'm just gonna try to explain it as simple as possible. So a motion for judgment is basically something you show to the judge and say, hey, on these legal grounds, this lawsuit should be tossed. In a motion for judgment, you don't add all the evidence, all the facts, and all those things. It's only based on the law. So what Baldoni's team is arguing here is that if all the things that Blake Lively is saying in her complaint is true, she still has no right to sue. So this is where it gets interesting. I have to admit, I was thinking, why are they doing this now, so late in the game? But apparently you can't do this earlier on. You have to be done with filing your amended complaints and all that back and forth with different lawsuits. And now they're doing it right before discovery ends, and they're just giving so much more work to Blake Lively's team. This probably won't get ruled on until like a couple of months from now, because now Blake Lively's team has to respond. But what's interesting here are the things that they're actually pointing out, which makes a lot of sense. One thing they're saying is that California law don't apply here because Blake Lively, as you know, has been trying to drag the Me Too law into New York and saying that you should rule on my case like it was in California because they have different laws there. And the Wayfair parties are saying to the judge, you really shouldn't do that because this is New York. And if you do that, you're the first judge to actually ever use the California law in another state. And are you sure you want to do that? That could actually give them more ammunition to appeal. and say, this judge didn't do the right thing here, and we need another judge to look at it. They're also saying that the timeline is killing her retaliation theory, because she was saying that she sent this complaint in, those 17 or 30 points that she sent in. That was in May 2023 that they signed that. And she's saying that her smear campaign didn't start until August of 2024, which is over a year later. So that doesn't make much sense. And they're saying that usually a gap of a year does not count as retaliation for something that happened so much earlier on. They're also pointing out that retaliation under employment law requires that someone gets fired or get demoted and they lose their job benefits. Instead, for Blake Lively, the opposite happened. So she got more power, she got script approval, she got editing rights, and she even got an executive producer credit. She wasn't punished, she was rewarded, the Wayfair Party is saying here. They're also pointing out that her lawyer, Brian Friedman, was not defaming her by his comments. He was only commenting on the litigation, which is privileged both under California law and New York Fair Report privilege. As you know, Brian Friedman has been out in the press commenting on this, and Blake Lively is accusing him of being part of the smear campaign because of that. Another interesting point here that I've seen a lot of lawyers are commenting on is the fact that Blake Lively never signed a contract with the Wayfair parties. She only signed a contract after all those points that she sent out, those 17 points that they were forced to sign. That's the only time she signed something. And then she signed with It Ends With Us movie, not with the Wayfair. So they never had a written agreement. And they're saying because of that, there can't be a breach of contract with the Wayfair parties, and she can't really sue them for that. Makes a lot of sense too. So a breach of contract here means that they were mistreating her on set, ignoring her conditions, or retaliating against her despite the deal that they made. And they're saying here, we didn't even have a contract. I'm sure Blake Lively's lawyers are going to argue back and say that, well, they acted like we have a contract. That's that kind of thing. But it should be interesting to see now how the judge is ruling on them. Blake Lively's team obviously will respond to this first. And then there's going to be lots of back and forth as usual. And he's going to delay the process again. But it seems to me, from my logical sense here, that the judge should toss out at least some of Blake Lively's claims. I think, of course, he should just toss out everything. But imagine the scenario if she only has left her SH claims, because they can't really throw those out because that's her feelings and opinions. But if she only has that left and not the retaliation claims, that's not going to be good for Blake. Okay, so let's get to this last thing that they were arguing so much about in the docket yesterday on a Saturday. So the former president of Sony Motion Pictures, John Greenstein, he was in charge of Sony while all of this was going on. And of course, Baldoni's team wants to depose him. And so does Blake Lively's team. And they have set a date on Tuesday, which is the last day of discovery, that they're going to share John Greenstein between them. And the whole fight now has been who should go first. Blake Lively thinks that she should go first, and she also thinks that this should happen in the offices of her attorneys. And then Baldoni's team can show up if they want to, and they get half the time. And then also this whole agreement was that he was going to be there from 9 o'clock in the morning, and then they pushed it so he could get there 1 hour earlier. And then Baldoni's team can't make it at 8 a.m. because they also have 2 or 3 other depositions the same day. And this whole feud has been about the timing and about who goes first. And now the judge has ruled that Blake Lively is getting her wills, so she is going to depose John Greenstein first. This is what Baldoni's team was fearing, and I'll tell you why. So one of Baldoni's attorneys explained the situation with John Greenstein like this. She said that the Wayfair defendants have reason to believe that Mr. Greenstein may have communicated with Blake Lively during the filming of It Ends With Us concerning her complaints about the production and Wayfarer, including the pace of the film, the scope of her role in rewriting the script and editing the film, her insistence that her cut of the film rather than the director's be released, even though Miss Lively's did not test as well, and Miss Lively's contemporaneous threats not to complete the film or participate in its marketing unless Sony and the Wayfarer defendants ceded to her demands. Miss Lively may also have raised concerns with Mr. Greenstein over complaints of mistreatment on the set, which is at the heart of her claims. So as you know, Sony was really protective of Blake Lively and did everything that she wanted. And now John Greenstein had to explain why they decided to release Blake Lively's version of the movie when it didn't test as well. I think it tested like 12 or 15% less than Baldoni's film, and they did 2 separate testings of the film. But Sony decided to go with Blake's version. Why? Also, interesting fact here is that this guy, John Greenstein, doesn't work for Sony anymore. Now he works for Paramount. Guess who has a new, amazing, shining deal with Paramount? Ryan Reynolds and Maximum Efforts. In February 2024, Paramount released a statement saying that they had renewed its first look development deal with Ryan Reynolds Maximum Effort Productions for an additional 3-year term, taking the studio's partnership with the production company through December of 2026. Who do you think John Greenstein is going to support here? Blake Lively? Or Justin Baldoni. Anyways, the reason why Baldoni's team wanted to question him first was obviously because now Blake's team gets the chance to set the narrative with him. And that's obviously not ideal for Baldoni. Another thing which they're worried about, which has happened before when they had to share a witness during a day, is that Blake's team will take extra time with him. Now they pushed it until 8 a.m. The judge said, yeah, that's fine, Blake, whatever you want. But the thing is, John Greenstein cannot stay later than 4:30. So if Baldoni's team hasn't received the information they need by 4:30, they won't have another chance. Because also, as you know, this is the last day of discovery. So they can't depose him after this. So I'm sure that Blake's team is going to push the limit to eat up the time that was supposed to be for Baldoni's team of John Greenstein. Anyways, that's it from me, you guys. A quick congratulations to Selena Gomez, who got married this weekend. Blake Lively was obviously not invited. She didn't like or comment on her posts either. I do hope Selena Gomez is going to be happy, but I don't like this guy. As I said before, I met him a few times. He didn't give me a good vibe, and he doesn't have the best reputation. So I truly hope that he's a better man than I thought he was, because I hope Selena Gomez is going to be happy. Also, Jimmy Kimmel has announced that Ryan Reynolds is going to be a guest at his show. Let's see if he tells his story again. That would be really interesting if he tells the story of the champagne case, bottle, and his wife calling, he read about it. He actually met him in person. That story, if he tells that again, that should be interesting. I hope he does. Let's see what the truth is this time. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, you guys, on a Sunday. I really appreciate it. Again, if you want to join the membership here on Flawsome Talk, you can press the join button below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and check if you've been unsubscribed. That happens a lot without people knowing it for some weird reason. And hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of Flawsome Talk. And Oscar wanted to wish everyone a happy Sunday as well, and hope to see everyone tomorrow. Right, Oscar? Yo. Bye.